Manvel Parks and Recreation Board meeting to order today, November 21st, 2024. Starting with a roll call, Linda Dunn, Brian Wilmer,
Present.
Larry Akery,
Here.
Byron Ceramito,
Present.
Marianne Atkinson,
Here.
Ellen Naglier,
Here.
Keith Bonner,
Present.
Paul Sofka,
Here.
Chair. So big change. Okay, is it on?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe you can help me out. When and how do I resign from the board? Do I do that now?
Staff had discussed possibly having a staff liaison for the board, which could possibly be you, but that's at the council level, not the staff level, so it would have to go before city council. But yes, as an employee, you can't be on the Parks Board. As long as they have a quorum, then tonight could be your last night, and they have enough. And we've got the extras that could sit in your place, and then one of the extras could determine if they want to be considered for a replacement person, or if not, they'll stay extras and we'll advertise for the position.
Okay. So since I'm currently a board member, can I make a motion that we accept Brian Wilmer's resignation?
No, you can't. That's overstepping your bounds. You're already getting cocky as an employee. What's the deal? I have a question. What is your role with City of Manvel?
So I've been hired by Public Works. I'm a groundskeeper. And I'm hoping it's the nucleus of a parks department here in Manvel.
I do too. When I pulled in the parking lot, I said, we're going to push for a parks department. We're going to have to push. I must have picked up on my ESPN was working, because that's congratulations. I think that's what's going to happen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've spent the week cleaning up and maintaining Croy Park. And so I've got a truck and a trailer. It's just me. I'm working out of Public Works. They've been extremely helpful. Hopefully it's the start of something new. We'll see. It's kind of uncharted territory. But I'm very excited, and I'm very happy to be working there.
That's great.
It is great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's great for us. So everything we do as a Parks Board now will be as long as Brian becomes the head of the Parks Department, right? That'll be our caveat.
My hope is to live long enough to see that.
Okay.
So.
Are you going to be the groundskeeper for the parks?
Yes, sir.
Like Crow Parks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Great.
So we want to thank you for your service. I know it's been a short time, but you have been very instrumental in helping us craft a lot of things that we came up with in the last few months. Tammy, I guess what I need to know is, as far as the appointing one of the alternates to that position, do we need to put that on as an agenda item, or can we do that tonight?
So no, you guys don't have that authority.
Okay.
So you can have one of them fill the gap this evening, the alternates are to fill when somebody's out, but then it'll be up to the city council to make that appointment of the swap. So now that you have a vacancy, I will reach out to both the alternates to see if either of them want to be considered as a permanent person on the board, or if they want to stay an alternate.
Okay.
If they want to stay an alternate, you absolutely can. Then we'll try to find a new board member to go before city council for recommendation.
Okay, sounds good. As for tonight for our alternates, because we do have 2 absences.
Then both of them could
Yeah.
come sit up. And it's Mr. Safka and Mr. Leha.
Do what?
You can take a seat.
Over there?
Hey, how are you?
Okay. Nice to meet you.
You want to?
And is it Leha?
Leha.
Leha.
Yes.
Sorry if I mispronounced
It's
that.
okay.
It's okay. Happens a lot.
Mine too. I got a lot of vowels in there.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready to get into the first agenda item, discussion, possible action on City Hall Park, design and input with PGAL? You have some update for us?
Sure, I can get started, but I want to make sure. Did I miss the public comment section? Did we go through the public comment section? Okay.
Okay, do we have public comments?
You have a paper filled out?
Sure. Now that I'm a member of the public.
Troublemaker.
Right.
Okay, in our last meeting, I said something which I have found out to be incorrect. At our last meeting, I said that we had a Keep Manvel Beautiful and that Miss Jackie Silva was president of it, and that I believed that we had $3,000 in the bank. I have been informed that that is not correct, that Ms. Silva was not the president of it, and we did not have $3,000 in the bank. There was a Keep Manvel Beautiful, and there was, another person was president of that?
Carrie Stiles.
Okay. So I'm here to tell you that what I had said previously was incorrect.
I just wanted to clear myself on
Okay, thank you.
Miss,
I'm trying to say that we never did have any meetings because
do you mind stepping up to the podium?
because you don't want to get me started. We never did really have any meetings because we couldn't get anyone, back then, people wouldn't, do stuff like this. And I was busy with my mom and my husband with Alzheimer's, so I couldn't put very much into it. So we never did have any meetings at all. It is a 504C. I did find that out last night. And Kerry is supposed to see if he has any of that, information and stuff. And he was getting the bank statements, but he said he had not. I think they quit sending them to him at some period of time, but I'm not sure when. And how I found out that they were still an account there, I was down at the bank putting money into my account, and they asked me which account did I want to put it in, and I said, well, I've only got 2, and they said, no, you've got 3. And I said, what's the third one? Well, it was Keep Manvel Beautiful. And there was some money in there, and I asked the lady that takes care of that kind of stuff there, I said, there's not a Keep Manvel Beautiful committee anymore. I said, what do I do? And she says, well, you can close the account out and take the money out. I says, I'm not taking the money out. So we talked there for a while and decided to, I think I talked to Dan also, that we would draw the money out because when a bank account goes dormant for a certain length of time, then the state comes up and picks it up. So I didn't want that to happen, and neither did the bank. So I talked to Dan, and I had the bank to do a check to City of Manvel, and Dan got the check, and I really don't know what account he put it in. I told him to let me know, but, he's busy and didn't let me know.
Right.
And that amount was, hold on a minute, $866.36.
Can I ask you a question? What would you like to see that money go to what project or something here in the city?
Well, there's so much that I'd like to be seeing here. I don't
Okay.
know. And I don't know if y'all formed a Keep Manvel Beautiful committee, if that money could go back into that account, I know that there's a lady by the name of Cindy, I'm not sure of her last name, that is really interested in getting a Keep Manvel Beautiful committee. And she has worked with the one in Pearland. She does grants. She's already talked to some of the businesses here to see if they would be interested in being a part of it before, we really get started. And she's planning on having a meeting in January, and with the ones that she's contacted. And she wanted me to get all of y'all's names and phone numbers so that she can send y'all what she's getting, when she wants to have that meeting and everything. Because she didn't realize, I didn't realize that y'all were interested in it again until the last meeting that I was here. But I think it's great. I mean, it's like Cindy said, something's got to be done.
Tammy, do you know this one?
So Cindy came in, and I scheduled, actually, it's been months ago. She expressed her interest in wanting to get involved primarily with parks and green space and different things within the city. Talked about what she had done for Pearland and different grant things. She was willing to donate her time to help with that. I scheduled a time for put her and the mayor in contact so that they could meet up, and then he could give her direction on where he felt she would be needed or what she could do or what his ideas were. And then I just didn't ever hear back on how their date, I don't want to call it a date,
Okay.
how it went when they met up.
Okay, she didn't mention, she had talked to him, but, we didn't go into anything. I will give her a call when I get back home. She had something else tonight and couldn't come. And she wants to get all the names and the phone numbers of the people that are on this committee so that whenever she does, get something started and start sending stuff out, then she can be sure that they get and she will come up here, at one of the meetings and talk to y'all about it, to let them, she's not jumping in over y'all. I know y'all have talked about it, but she's just interested in getting something started.
I think we would very much appreciate her assistance and support in whatever direction this board, the mayor, and the city wants to go. Thank you.
I missed your name. Could I please, for my records, could I get your name, please?
Jackie Silva, S-A-L-V.
Silva, okay. And what was Cindy's last name?
I have to show you how it's spelled.
Okay, thank you.
Can you say it out loud?
Looks like Buckhild. Or Buchhild. Bucheald. I can say it like country, or I can try to give it the German
She live in
spin.
Manvel? Does she live here? Okay.
Yeah, she doesn't have any children,
Thank you.
so she said she had all the time in the world to work on it.
That's a
Jackie.
great
Jackie,
contact.
she's got my contact information. If you could have her reach out, instead of reaching out to all because this is an active board, so for quorum purposes, I can't have all of them talking about one topic with one person dealing with parks. But if she sends me the information, I can coordinate everything through the board to make sure they get all the information on it.
Tammy, how does the existing 50, I'm assuming it's a
Vote 4C?
Or see?
It would depend if it's still in,
It's that one.
or still active, and I don't know, I guess I could reach out to Kerry Stiles.
I talked to him last night, and when I asked him, did we have a, 504? He said, I don't think so. He says, I think you told me not to give it to the bank. I thought, why would I tell you not to do that? I wouldn't have anything to do with that. So I was looking at statements that the bank had run for me, and there is a number there.
Tax ID number?
A 504. And he's supposed to look and see if we can find it.
Find it in his. I'll
Tim?
reach out, I'll send Carrie and Diana an email, and just follow up on it. The bank's not going to give me any, if the account's closed, maybe they would
Yeah.
give me something, but typically that's not common practice.
Yeah.
Let me email Carrie and Diana and ask them if there's anything. Well, who else, do you know who else was on that board?
Tammy, since we are still doing public comments, if we need to carry forward the discussion, we can take care of it as item number B, which is talking about Keep Texas Beautiful affiliate program. So let's end the public comment and move agenda item by agenda.
I have one comment. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Ivory. I am with a firm called Schaumburg and Polk, and I talked with Dan Johnson this past summer about possibly coming in and doing some work for you guys with your parks. And so I wanted to come in and introduce myself because I came to the city council meeting on Monday, and he said, "Oh, well, the Parks and Board has met twice already, and maybe you can come and introduce yourself." And so here I am. I'm with Schaumburg and Polk. The company has been around since 1937 doing engineering services for municipalities in Texas. And there will possibly be some avenues of providing funding, like Texas Water Development, Texas Parks and Recreation Board funding, and we're, as Schaumburg and Polk, we're used to getting that paperwork done. And so I love to work for you guys and be a part of the park's growth. I hear you're doing a park back behind this facility, and I guess that would be one of the good things that we can kind of start talking about parks and trails and that kind of thing. So I'm eager to hear what you guys have coming up, and so I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Do
Yes.
you have any business cards?
I do.
Okay. Is it okay if he passes them out? Okay, thank you.
While he's doing that, do we have any additional public comments?
Yeah, I was just, I was curious, so you talking about design or implementation or what you talking about here for? What kind of work you talking about, design or implementation or?
I'm an engineer. I'm a civil engineer, and I do, I've done parks and trails and sidewalks and even water and wastewater facilities, pavement drainage. I've done all of that, but for you guys, I'll be working with parks and trails, that kind of thing.
So you're talking about the design itself?
Design
correct? Okay,
itself.
not the implementation, but the design.
The
right?
design.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
Thank you.
indeed.
And you also said that you help with grants paperwork?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Any session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I believe we're ready to get into the agenda here. Agenda item A, discussion and possible action on the City Hall Park design and input with PGAL.
All right, good evening, everybody. This agenda item was included with two purposes primarily. Number one being to hear from y'all about any input or any thoughts that you have from what you saw at the last meeting and the plan that was the preliminary concept that was forwarded by Tammy to y'all. And number two, for staff to provide you any progress that we've made or any input that we've received from the design team. So I would start with the second item, which is input from our side. So we met with the engineer who was working on the survey and the engineering for the overall project, the West Wing expansion, as well as the park, and the park planning team to take a look at some of the options. And one of the things that we figured out is like detention would be required for the property, and we are still working on the engineering aspect of it to determine what would be the volume that is needed, how the area of detention that needs to be provided impact the space that we have. So the park itself is like it's a project that was added to the City Hall expansion project. So we do have a budget constraint as well as area constraint. I mean, it's limited to the area that we have on the back. So our team is looking into what all can be done and what compromises may have to be made depending on what we find out about the detention. So that's where we are at. But as of now, we have the broad list that we got from y'all based on your previous discussion, like the gazebo, the pavilion, the dog park, the playground area, making sure we are preserving the trees, making sure we have trees that are worth preserving, making sure there is like sidewalk for cross-access, making sure the right-of-way has on-street parking for the events that we think about, or the farmers market and those sorts. So we are still working on those checklists that we have. And tonight on this agenda item, if y'all have any other input or anything else that you saw based on the plan that was forwarded to y'all by Tammy last time, we would appreciate that.
Let me ask you something on the detention. If you look at the project as a whole, what percentage of that land would be in detention? 30 or 25% or something, would you say?
And that is exactly what we are trying to figure out. So we don't have a definite answer on that. We know that detention is needed, and we are trying to make sure we are factoring in everything so that the area as well as the volume needed for detention to cover the drainage as well as floodplain mitigation is as low as possible, so that we can maximize the area for the park, dog park, and the things that we are having. So we don't have an exact number right now, and we are hoping at the next meeting we may be able to give you a better picture in terms of how much of it is going to go for detention.
Do you anticipate that having an impact on the existing trees there?
No.
Okay.
So the ones that are worth preserving, the trees, I think we should be able to preserve the trees.
Is the preliminary layout that we saw, is that pretty much going to stay the same, the rendering with the detention close to Masters Road?
Yes, the location of the detention, it makes sense to be on that side. The location of the gazebo and the pavilion somewhat would be in that area too. But we would definitely be looking at more than one option. Keeping the broad locations fixed, the detailing of it, like what would be the programming around it, paving versus grass area, orientation of your building for the restroom with respect to the parking. We will be looking at multiple options so that we can bring to you so that y'all can take a look at it and see which option or combination of which options, however it goes, would make the most sense and be of most value to the community. So we'll bring you more than one option, but predominantly we are not going to be, I don't think the detention location is going to change or the pavilion location is going to go another side. Because of the limited space we have, there's only certain type of organization that will bring most value in what we are trying to achieve.
You mentioned some budget constraints. As the drawings that Tammy sent out, based on the budget we have now, we feel like that can get done, or are the budget constraints going to be around the features? Because I know Keith has some real good ideas about some parks in the areas and some things that we could do.
Right, and that is also something that we are trying to figure out, and a lot depends on what we figure out on the detention in terms of the volume, or what are some of the creative ways we can do certain things so that the impact on detention is minimized, and what's the cost for that and all of that. So our goal is to make sure again, I'm going to repeat myself. The project initially was to have the City Hall expansion, but then when we started looking at it, it made more sense to also add a park. So that's what led to the budget constraint that I'm talking about. And these days, generally, I mean, the cost of things have gone up, the park equipment, the materials, everything is just expensive. So our goal would definitely be to make sure we're achieving everything that we're trying to achieve. But I definitely want you all to keep that in mind, the fact that if we get to a point where we have to pick one over another option in terms of, say, the material that we use, or the design of a certain thing, or the size of a certain thing, that may be a discussion we'll have to have depending on what we find out in terms of the detention volume needed and the cost of everything. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. I appreciate that feedback.
I think one of the things we need to, y'all as a board need to explore, and it goes along with one of the subcommittees you're forming, is looking at possible grants that might be available for some of the equipment that might be needed there. And that's where this gentleman might have some information, and other groups like him would have some information, because they do work hand in hand with these grant applications. So that's something that you can think about. For every dollar that you can utilize something like that for, then you're not taking away from the budget money that you're going to have.
I'm sorry, I'm a little hoarse. And that's correct. I've looked into some of the grants through the Texas Parks and Wildlife. A lot of them out there are for schools or students. I haven't weeded through too many of them. I found a few for like butterflies that, $500 here and there, that is very, like, all you gotta do is prove that you planted the milkweed. There's so much out there that we can find. Reading through them, I haven't been able to actually okay, here, let's try this or let's try this. But a lot of the deadlines, like Linda was saying, are now pushed back and not till February. So we have just a little bit of time to try to get some in. So, but I'm still researching that.
Any other input on the plan that y'all saw last time that you would want us to keep in mind?
Brian had mentioned outlets around the park. It's just something I think that's pretty important for vendors when we do activities, that's something that should definitely be included if the budget allows it.
Absolutely, and that is definitely on our list to make sure we can use it for multiple things. And yeah, it's very important for maintenance as well.
Thank you.
Did y'all have any discussion about the parking as it was shown on the drawings? Anything like that? I know there was discussion about angle parking versus straight-in parking on Large Street. Would that help any? So I think that might be some comments that would be useful to the engineering before they get everything designed, because if they don't think there's any issue from the board on what's kind of being shown right now, then they're not going to make any any possible suggestions for alternatives, so.
We did have angled parking and parking lots a little bit larger for farmers market trailers and stuff like that, which we did put
Good.
that on there last time.
The deep.
Yes, the deep parking and the angled parking where you come in and then like one way kind of.
So,
Also, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Joseph.
No, I was just going to say that parking-wise, we definitely have those notes on our to-do list as part of the design process. But the biggest goal is to maximize the parking spaces because there's needs for the city hall, parks, and there's only limited area that we have that we can use for parking. Number two, to keep the deeper parking spaces, we are definitely looking into it, but one of the issues that we might run into it is like it might get into the green space area versus the impervious, and that could have an impact on detention. So depending on how all of that dynamics go, we may have to talk about, hey, it's either green area or the deeper space, whatever makes more sense. And I guess at the next meeting we may be able to bring some of those discussions to you and some of those options to you, saying, hey, let's look at what style of playground equipments we need, or what type of hard surfaces are we talking about, decking, what style for the pavilion or the gazebo are we looking at, what type of fencing. We may be able to get to that level at the next meeting. But before we get there, it's important that we are able to figure out the whole detention aspect of it, because that is the deciding factor on a lot of things in terms of location, area, budget, cost, all of that. So hopefully next meeting we have an answer on that.
Well, then that strikes out what I was going to say, so I'll wait till the next meeting.
All right, do we have any additional input on the design or features? Guess we're kind of at a holding pattern, kind of understanding what needs to happen with detention. All right, I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda. Update and possible action on Keep Texas Beautiful affiliate program.
This is something that we had discussed last time also, if you all remember, and we included it on this agenda just to make sure if there's any follow-up that you all wanted to provide, we would be receptive to that. Just a reminder, last meeting, the discussion was you all are definitely interested in signing up for the Keep Texas Beautiful affiliate program. And the interest was like, we have this body be the Keep Manvel Beautiful affiliate board, I guess. We haven't started the application and we haven't started that process yet, but we do plan on doing that in the coming month or so. So we'll keep you in the loop on how the process goes and how the program goes. But in the light of new information that we have today, if you all would like to continue the discussion that we just had when we started, we can do that to see if you need to consider another route, maybe a different board, a different group of volunteers who would be the Keep Manvel Beautiful, or you may want to have a group which includes the Parks Board as well as a group of volunteers. We can kind of discuss that, and we'll take a look at what alternatives we have and move forward accordingly, or bring back our recommendation to you at the next meeting and then take an action on starting the application process and move forward with that.
I guess what I would want to understand, and this might be something that we discuss in the next meeting, is the status of the current nonprofit. And I think what we asked at the last meeting, do we have to have a nonprofit status in order to have a Keep Manvel Beautiful board?
I think it helps drastically, don't you think, Brian? Can
I
we
think
ask
so.
The audience, I mean, we have somebody that's probably got some knowledge in the audience.
Ms. Silva, do you have some feedback on whether or not you have to be a nonprofit to have a Keep Texas Beautiful board?
They've got a 405, and they do have a nonprofit number, a tax number. Of course, it's not active, and I don't know if it can be, you can reactivate that, or you have to completely start all over.
I'm almost positive this part kicks in some of the funding.
It would make sense that for your fundraising grants,
I do believe you can reactivate it.
And
Sounds like it's active.
And we'll look into that to make sure what the status is and see what's needed to make sure it is active. If it's not already.
Yeah.
I guess as Joseph was saying, is that something based on new information? Is that something that this board wants to take on, or do we look at a separate group aside from this board, or do we try to formulate some type of partnership between the board and another group?
A partnership is what sounds the best to me, especially since we have some folks that are a really strong interest and previous experience with the city of Pearland in this very thing. This Miss Cindy, it sounds like we should really tap into her interest and experience, and partner with that external group.
I agree with that, but I think what I heard a little bit from Ms. Silva is that the interest was not there from a lot of the community. So whatever we do, I think us as a board, we need to help spur that interest just to make sure that it doesn't go by the wayside.
You might find out after you have this next, sounds like, meetings with Tammy sending y'all the information, how many people are actively sound like they're going to be involved. And then based on that number, and once y'all talk to them, you can then determine there may be enough people to, I don't know what the minimum is to have that board.
So I know when I started 20 years ago, there was a thermometer outside the old city hall that showed what little bit of money had been raised for it. That's all I know about.
The bricks is where the money came from that was in the account.
So I just saw the thermometer. It never grew.
But if you had 4 or 5 people that were interested in putting this back and becoming the board, then maybe you would have, similar to my function here as a liaison, you would have a liaison person to that Keep Manvel Beautiful. And that way, because I think this board is going to be tied up, especially in the next 12 to 18 months, with a lot of stuff that I don't know that all of you want to take on having to run something else.
Is that board independent? It's completely separate from the city. It takes no city action, no city
Nothing to act on its
anything.
own.
It is envisioned that way. So from what I understand, the Keep Texas Beautiful affiliate program, it can be any group of people, and some cities it's the parks board themselves, and most of the cities that I'm aware of, they have a separate volunteer group, and they are out in the field doing stuff, getting the funding, and running some of these programs. And a lot of times and even educational programs and stuff for the community. And a lot of times, there's a relationship between the Parks Board and this group in terms of guidance, recommendation, providing resources, and things of that sort. So a lot of community benefits from having two different bodies, one being like the operational arm, so to speak, who are out there, and not saying that the Parks Board members may not be involved in the operation. However, the two separate bodies, what I've seen in a lot of communities, but again, we'll go back, do some research, come back in terms of what are some of the options, some of the questions that came up, like what the minimum number of members is recommended. Do we need a registered nonprofit? We'll bring you all of those information so that we can take an action, so that we can move forward with an application after the next meeting.
And I think once we got that information and put it out to the public, there's a lot more people that live in Manvel now that may want to volunteer for that.
Right, because you're talking, what, 20 years ago, you said that's when that, right, it didn't take off? But I bet you it's different now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And sometimes it's also possible that once the word is out, you find, and I'm speaking based on one of the experiences I've had, you might find individuals who we had no clue, they're already doing some of these stuff in their personal capacity within a smaller scale, like maybe just within their community or neighborhood, or reaching out or doing things on Facebook. But when they hear about this opportunity, they're ready to be more involved and expand. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Joseph. Do we have any more discussion or input on this topic? All right. We are missing our grants chair, but we welcome any updates from any of those committee members. I don't know if you all had a chance to meet. Okay.
No, sir, and it's just the little bit of research that I've been doing online is all I got. And Linda, she has some personal issues is why she couldn't be here tonight. But I will reach out to her probably after Thanksgiving and see where she's at and report back to Tammy, and she'll let y'all know.
All right. Thank you. I do have, I guess, this is probably more of a question for you, Joseph. Just reading through the grant policies and procedures that Tammy, thank you for so graciously sending those out. It mentioned a lot of seemed like what would be a heavy lift was on an administrator, which was likely a city employee. Do you all have someone in that capacity if we identify these grant opportunities, or would that be a function of this subcommittee or board?
Tammy, do you want to answer that question? As far as I know, we do not have a dedicated staff available for grant writing and that. And the whole discussion and the purpose of the grant subcommittee was to be able to have that worked on within that between the committee members with whatever help staff like myself. And this would be a perfect opportunity for me to introduce Jorge. Mr. Jorge is our Jorge Rena is our development manager, and he supervises the permits function of our development services department, but at the same time also has a lot of overlap in terms of the engineering planning aspects of development as well. And Jorge is interested and passionate about parks, and he also wants to be involved in the Parks Board meeting. So this is the first meeting he's attending, so I wanted to introduce him. So staff like myself, Tammy, Jorge, as much as we can pitch in to help, we will do that. However, the function was any grant the thought was grant related to parks. With the grant subcommittee, we come up with a way to knock it out.
Okay, I if that's where we are, that's where we are. I think we can work within that scope. But I guess once we identify some opportunities, we still need to understand, because reading that policy is a process for you all in evaluating them. I wouldn't want that subcommittee to go too far down the road with something that was not feasible for the city. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we might have to have those conversations and back and forth dialogue while we are going through the process before we go too far down the lane.
Yeah.
And that was something that I was kind of, when I'm reading through it, also running into. I was trying to find things that seems like they were easy enough to read without a whole bunch of other stuff to do, because I know, because in the policy, it goes back to the city to decide if they want to really do that and the stipulations. So I was trying to find smaller deals to kind of work on, maybe start there, like you're saying, like the butterfly one, it's $500, but it's to plant milkweed, and that was something that was very small, and it's all through the parks, Texas Parks and Recreation. And that's kind of what I was going to send over to Joe's when I had a chance to actually really sit and look at it, and then see if that's kind of along the lines of where we need to go and where we need to start, since it was so small.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
It's an idea, since Crow Park we've got an opportunity, we've got a lot of opportunity for butterflies and a lot of Texas native plants. I think we could have programs over there for families to come over there and kind of refund what you're trying to do, because that's the whole focus over there, is to get families going. I think long run, it's going to do a great job for us over there.
Yeah, and that was one of them, was getting the community involved, doing it, and then making the migration, giving them a place to stay and eat before they go all the way down to Mexico for the monarchs. It's actually a monarch grant is what that one was for.
Absolutely. That's great.
Do you remember off top of your head what was the timeline to apply?
It was August.
Okay.
Yeah. As I said, a lot of them are gone. There's a few coming up in February, but they might be a little too big for us to jump into. So, but I'll dig in and see what else I can find.
All right. Do we have any additional discussion on this agenda item? All right. Next agenda item, discussion and possible action on assigning subcommittees. I think the last meeting we talked about city park subcommittee. Somebody, Ellen, if you refresh my memory, did we have another one outside that? And I know we formulated the grants committee.
Just the parks is all I remember. We did talk about naming. I didn't know if we were going to come up with a subcommittee for because there's a process you have to follow for naming. But I don't think we were doing a subcommittee on that.
So Joseph, do you feel like we're there right now where we need to put together a committee, or do we need to wait on for you to come back with more design input?
I would suggest that we wait till we have that determination in terms of detention and stuff, and then depending on where we're at in terms of what are some of the decisions we need to make, and what are some of the recommendations that might have to come out. At that point, you can decide whether a subcommittee is needed, or it can be something that can be figured out without a subcommittee.
Okay.
Regarding the name of the park, didn't you guys mention that there was a criteria, certain parameters that you guys already had set for that?
Yes, the city council has adopted a naming policy that we have, and whatever the proposal is, whatever the recommendation is, that is something that we can take it to the city council, unless the city councils already have something in mind that they may want to consider. But even if that's the case, we can always provide your recommendation to the council to take action. And we have councilmen here who can maybe add some more thoughts to that. Any other input on that?
Tammy sent a little two-pager out that had the criteria on it.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
See that either.
Right now, I don't know that there's not really been any discussion on a name for the City Hall Annex Park. I don't even think it's really come up. Right now, that's about what it's called when people talk about it, is City Annex or a City Addition, or I don't even remember what. City Hall Park. So I'm sure there'll probably be some discussion on that later down the line when it becomes more of a
Okay.
finalized deal. There are other parks in the area, but they're already named, the ones that are being looked at. At least one of them is named after former Mayor Dolores Martin. That's an area that's set aside for a park, and it's already named. But as new places come up, I tend to see this just as a recommendation, just like planning would give a recommendation to city council when they bring stuff there, and all the other committees that are there. Your recommendation will always be listened to, and so just. I think what we're trying to say is there's a set way we're gonna have to follow to do those naming, and it has to meet a criteria and go before people. So
I know it's generic right now, City Hall Park, but honestly, it doesn't sound horrible. Just throwing that out there.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'd make a comment if I could about new parks. I think there's the real opportunity, since we're talking about making Manvel beautiful and having nature opportunities in parks. There are probably a lot of citizens out there and that are candidates for maybe grants or giving us money. And I've spent a lot of time. I've been a financial consultant, and I've had 3 or 4 families help set up foundation money for charities. You know, and the idea is to contact individuals, you know, and go out there and promote making Manvel build. And the ideal candidate, I'll give you some ideal candidate person. An ideal candidate is a person, a widow, a bachelor that's never been married, and he has land, and he's probably trying to figure out what he's going to do with his money. If we could approach somebody like that and tell them about what we're doing, we could probably get some money. Another candidate are, you know, persons that have a large lot of land or property, and we could talk to them, just ask them whether or not they would be interested in helping the city grow. And it would be like an opportunity for us to go out there and do that. I wouldn't mind working on some of these things because I spent a lot of time, you know, doing stuff like that as a consultant. And believe me, it does work. And I've actually had situations where talking about making an opportunity, a grant to help somebody to do something for a charity, and the person said, you know, you've got a great idea. Nobody's ever asked me about that. Nobody's ever talked to me about that opportunity. So there are a lot of opportunities, and I'm thinking if we do something like this, you know, we as a board or as individuals, would the city have any problems about us contacting somebody like that?
That's the only thing that I would suggest is that there needs to be a discussion with Bobby to make sure the legalities of you as a board member for the city asking those type of questions. And I think that's just a simple sit down with Bobby and probably city manager to just have that discussion and find out the parameters there of what can be done and what you can do and can't do. And, anything like that where you're going to ask for money on behalf of a city, I think needs to run by Bobby, especially first, just to make sure. I think it's a great idea, and I think that might be one of your subcommittees that you have, if Bobby said that was fine, is
A
to think
fundraising
about
subcommittee?
a fundraising subcommittee that you can figure out all the legalities there, because I'm sure there are tons of them. Bobby just needs to be involved in that.
Yeah, how we go about it legally.
Well, and there's another opportunity. I know my mind has gone blank in here. Brian and I have talked about getting with Brazoria County. You know, there's not a lot of parks here, and we need to go to them and do some work together, see if we can get them to influence some money down this way.
Yeah, and I can't talk
Because the
about it
city's
in
going
detail right
that
now,
way.
but that is ongoing right now.
Oh, it is? Okay, good. That's good.
Well, you can talk in generalities. We won't ask you to talk in detail.
In generalities, we started
I'm-
discussions about 2 months ago with the county, because there is not a park in this part, and we have a commissioner that wants to spend some money on parks, so those talks are ongoing. It's in the very early stages of trying to get the proposal ready, trying to get the layouts ready so that we give the ammunition to the commissioner to go to Commissioner's Court and work out some of those details. But that is where we are
For a county
working on
park.
that.
Okay, that's wonderful news.
And it would be a joint type deal where it's not all county, it's county and city. They have the expertise in management of parks. We don't have that because we don't have a board right now. So we're looking at some of those deals of how can we structure this joint agreement to where 5-10 years from now, we might have that expertise and we can take over the management of it and not be on the county. So there's a whole bunch of details to work out, but we have been doing, that's been going on now for a couple of months.
And when were y'all going to tell us this?
Well, when we get enough details, it's just like I say, it's in the discussion. The whole council hasn't even been made completely aware that's coming. So that we just have to get to a point to where we're just not talking about a dream, you know? But as soon as it's made available, this board would probably be heavily involved in a bunch of that too. It's a passion of mine, okay? So
Are there any other cities working with the only other communities?
they've got one other park project going right now. I'm not sure what part of it's more in the southern end. I can't remember where he was talking about, but they're doing a couple of things, but nothing basically this side of Angleton. So, and there's the closest county park to us right now is Resoff Park. So that's how far away. If you drew a big circle, there's nothing closer.
Just getting back to the conversation of contributions. Tammy, do you know whether or not the city has some type of policy around? I know we still need to talk to legal about the approach, but is there already some kind of policy around in-kind contributions of land or something like that?
So, not a mayor policy. Years and years ago. So a one-off thing that somebody wants to give something is one thing. Reaching out to represent the city to try to encourage or try to work something out, I think that's completely different, which would just be the simple conversation with Bobby. But no, we don't have a policy right now for something like that. But if you want to give the city something, or if anybody wants to, we're always willing to accept it.
I can just add one thing to that. So as part of our development-related ordinances, subdivision ordinance, we do have what we call the parkland dedication requirement. That gets triggered whenever we have a big or small residential development. And as part of the allowance for them to subdivide the property, there are parkland dedication requirements. I don't remember the details of it off the top of my head, but they have multiple options to do it. They can do private parks within the community that contributes to a certain allowance for what is required. Then trails are one of the ways to meet those requirements. But then based on like approval from the city council, they do also have an option of cash in lieu of parkland. So that is also a source. And that is possible if whatever parkland dedication required is less than 5 acres. So if it's a smaller scale development, that money is for parkland related use, so that money can be used in any of the existing parks that might be closer to the proposed development. So that is one of the things that we may see in the coming days, where if a developer wants to approach cash in lieu of land dedication, depending on what the proposal is, that could be a potential funding source as well.
Is that an avenue for a budget line for parks?
So I don't know of any that we've got that have opted to give the funds yet.
No, but I mean, in the future, is that kind of the?
It would be earmarked specific to parks, yes, sir.
Okay.
May I, Pearland has something like that with the trees. If the developer comes in and strips the area, because there's certain trees that Pearland will not let them cut down. And if they come in and strip, they have to pay so much more to do that, then that Parks Department takes that money and plants trees somewhere else. But there are certain trees on their list that they are not allowed to cut down. So that could be kind of what you're talking about on that too, like take the money, you know, here's $1 million and let me cut all the trees down, you know, but that's.
Well, that's an interesting something to think about in lieu of the fact that we're kind of working on a tree ordinance right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't gotten much past discussion stage, but it's coming. Especially where city properties are involved. It's hard to tell a individual person, say yourself, who owns a acreage here in town, what to do with their trees, but it's really going to be, let's make sure the city is following conservation, and let's make sure developers are doing that. So that's an interesting thing to look at.
And it might be something to reach out to Pearland, because I actually know someone who had run into that. He had 2 acres. He was not allowed to cut down certain trees on his acreage.
So just to follow up on what Councilman just mentioned, so we did have some discussions on that. Staff has received guidance or direction to pursue that type of requirements as part of our development related ordinance, and we've already started doing some research. And Pearland is definitely one of the communities we are looking at to see what they have. And there's a few other communities we are looking at to come up with an ordinance that works well for the city of Manvel. So we will definitely be looking at the option to see if you're clear cutting or if you're taking down a tree that is required to be preserved, we were thinking along the lines of making sure that it's replaced with a certain specification of the tree, but we'll also look to see if putting in fund for replacement by the city is an option, and making sure that we can administer it and enforce it fairly is one of the things that we'll be looking into.
Yeah,
but it's in the works. Long story short, it's in the works.
That's where I was going to go. The big oak trees, like the trees of Manvel, they're not allowed to cut those down at all in Pearland that I'm aware of, the older trees and stuff. So, yeah, definitely.
So right now, our development ordinance does have that intent, but it doesn't have that teeth, or it doesn't have, the ordinance very clearly doesn't give us the authority to stop cutting down on that. The intent is that it's generally encouraged, and when we meet with developers, when we have those discussion development related, we always try to see if there is an alternate way to preserve the tree, if there's a way we can change our design or layout. But then there are some circumstances where you don't have that option, depending on the site constraints or depending on the specific layout that we are looking for.
Usually at entrances and exits. is the
Exactly,
problem.
exactly. And sometimes TxDOT may have, if it's a TxDOT right of way where it's taken access from, TxDOT would be like, nope, between this point and this point is where you get your access, and then that's exactly where the tree is. So we have challenges of that sort. So anyways, I mean, we are working on an ordinance that would make sense, that would be helpful in terms of achieving that goal of preserving as many mature, beautiful trees as we can.
Since we're talking about trees, does the city have a list of trees that you would like people to plant? For example, at Crow Park, we've got some trees, Texas native trees. And since we're in the spring and migration period, this area here is ideal for birds coming across the Gulf, need a place to stay. And if we got more trees, particularly Texas native trees, which attracts the birds. I know I've got a bird habitat. I know Ellen has been working on one too. So, and it's amazing just how these birds come through here, and they look, particularly when it's raining, they're looking for places to stay, and they come straight down. And if you've got a tree there that has berries to it, or it's a heavy bush or in a wilderness area, you'd be amazed what you can see. So we could really help promote birds. Are you doing anything like that in terms of putting out lists?
So right now we do not, but as part of the discussion that we had about tree preservation, and that is one of the things that we are going to consider to see if we put. It could be broad, but it may not be like very stringent in terms of what you're asking for commercial development and stuff. But that is something that we might be considering. At least evergreen trees for the commercial development, to make sure that there is foliage. But we'll see. I mean, it's something that we are thinking about. We don't know how exactly it'll take shape as we finalize the ordinance, but it's definitely on the list.
We actually listen.
For example, too, I think what we could do there is go to the developers and educate them.
Well, and that's one of the things I was going to say. Here two months ago at the Brazoria County Cities Association meeting down in, what's the little town? It was, which one? Yeah, it was Old Ocean, those meetings. They had a guy from Gulf Coast. He was the bird guy. I mean, this guy told me more about birds than I'd ever even thought about reading about. Very well educated about the birds in this area, how they track them, how they watch the migration, how they actually have a group that goes down and counts birds, and that's amazing to me that you can try and count birds, but they know how many days they're going to stay in this one location. And he had the same comments that we're slowly but surely destroying all the breeding areas for a lot of birds. And so their task is to redo some of these areas, and they've had a lot of help from Dow and companies like that are along the coast that have built some places for the birds, and how important certain trees were. And me and Harry were really interested that night. We stayed awake the whole meeting. That's unusual. So if it made me tell people, I've told 2 or 3 people, next time you're down around Freeport, you need to go by that place that's down there, because I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff for not only birds, but all kinds of fish and everything down there that is really interesting to look at. And the bird still is real important. I mean, he talked to, what amazed me was the things he talked about that I never thought about that the birds were good for, and that turned to what the trees were good for. And we've had a lot of discussion here over the last 6 months here in town about trees. So it is on the agenda. And we're looking at the importance of doing it right. So just understand that sometimes your best intentions of doing it right aren't controlled by anything we can control here. And I think that's where the comment about TxDOT is we don't have any control over what they tell us. We can try and work with them, and we do, but sometimes it comes down to that's what you're going to do. So.
All right. Any additional discussion? I did want to make one comment. I guess you all need to also possibly, if you're looking for another subcommittee member, since Brian resigned, you need to identify somebody for your subcommittee. I don't know if we want to do that now or you want to
Can we wait? till
wait.
the-
Okay.
Or
Okay.
get her input?
Yeah.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, that would make sense. I'm sorry.
I have a question. I know at one point we were close to getting a sports complex, 160 acres. Since that fell through, does anybody have any updates on what's going on with that land and what the future plans are?
I'm not 100% sure if I would say that it fell through. I've heard about things. I've heard about that, but the news says December there'll be a discussion at the city council meeting on that particular property and what the city council's thoughts and plans are about that property. And I don't know if it could be the sports complex, it could be something else, but that's what the agenda item would be about, for staff to get some input from the council about the direction they would want us to do our research or move forward with for that particular property.
So there's still potential that that could happen?
Yes.
Yes, it could, depending on how that discussion
There's a lot of
goes.
things in motion right now with EDC just having their strategic plan basically finalized last night, and the city working to finalize ours, which is going to be another, what did you tell us? What did you tell us?
The strategic plan would be January
Yeah.
adoption.
January or so, when we'll get all of that information together. And at that time is when we're going to start buckling down on the 160 acres and different areas around town and all the other things that goes into that strategic planning. So give us a couple of months and we should have more information out there.
Great, thank you.
What's the date of the next city council meeting?
It is the first Monday in December, which is December the 2nd. That item is listed on the workshop, so it'll be at 5:30 when that discussion takes place.
Also, if I may, the EDC, if y'all are available, to come to their meetings too, because they discuss a lot of stuff for the future. Last night, it was a very long meeting, but it was a good meeting, and they seemed to be pecking away at everything. So it's just an idea.
A lot of information in that meeting last night
Yeah.
that if you don't, I watch it online sometimes. Sometimes I try and come, but last night I watched it online. And it, like she says, it was a long meeting, but it was very informative. Some good ideas thrown out there. And a lot of it can pertain to this board, if you want to know the truth.
We might be able to get help from them too. They have a budget. It's here, usually on Wednesdays.
So their scheduled meeting is the second Wednesday of each month. I can email the link to the recording
Yeah, I'd like to
from
see it.
last night's meeting. Now, keep in mind, the EDC's got a budget, but their budget's very specific to sales tax and jobs. So it's to bring in sales tax dollars, to bring in new jobs. There are some business things that they can do, but they can't necessarily put a park in a non-business area.
I was
It's all
just
about
kidding.
business.
I was just kidding.
And jobs, new creations. But it is a very interesting board and what they can do. And, you know, to bring people in to go to the parks that you guys would be building takes a pretty area of businesses for people to come work at and high-paying jobs, and then that trickles all around the city. So there is a good correlation between
And I think
what they do and what you guys do.
I think that's the most important thing that I heard last night is the partnerships that they're trying to develop, because the more businesses they can bring in, the more houses we can build, which that gets more tax money into the city, and that lets us have more room to budget items for y'all based on sales tax and revenue from home building and all that. So I think it's really good. There hasn't been a strong push on the EDC over the last, I don't know, last year and a half. It kind of slowed down a little bit. And now the current board is really motivated to do some new things. And I think you're going to see some movement now. So.
And that video is uploaded to YouTube? Okay, very good. I'll go watch it.
It was just an idea, maybe, because they were working and kind of getting people in, businesses in, and if we can get these businesses in, maybe we can get them to help with the park stuff too. Yeah.
That's what you look for is partnerships. There's tons of businesses as they come and as they're gonna come, the right businesses are gonna come here that look for partnerships with the organizations in your city. And they want their name out there. They want to be known as a good partner because that to them makes good business sense. So that's what the goal should be.
All right, did everyone get to look over the last meeting minutes? If no discussion, I would like to get a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion we approve the minutes, last meeting.
Do we have a second?
A second?
All right, all in favor of approving last meeting's minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. All right. That looks like all
Before you
the,
adjourn. So, of course, next month is December. So do you guys want to have your meeting in December, or is that too close to Christmas? Do you want to bump it to your January? It would put you meeting on Thursday, December the 19th.
I think we discussed last meeting, maybe not meeting in December and coming back in January. Is that still pretty much the consensus?
It is with me.
That's fine with me.
So your next meeting will be January the 16th.
You think that'll be enough time to have some of those questions answered?
I hope so, yeah.
And you're going to send an
And
email, right?
I think we're at a point where we cannot afford much more delay in that aspect, because the more we delay, there's cost implication, there's timeline complication. So I'm pretty hopeful by Jan we'll have at least we'll be able to bring a few options to you.
Plus, you said your strategic plan might be together in January.
Yeah, so the strategic plan, a draft was presented to the council. Now we have a couple of public engagement social media posts to inform public about it, and online meeting that we are planning between now and January. And the tentative adoption date is set for either the first or second meeting in January, where the final version would be presented to the council for their input. And if there's no change required or needed by the council or proposed by the council, it may get adopted in that timeline. If there's any change needed or some kind of adjustment needed to the document or the proposals of the document, it might move to the next meeting, which would be in February. But the goal is January adoption.
All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.